Uh-oh. Okay, and now it's time for our weekend recap. We're going to kick it off with the Isaac Cruz versus Angel Fierro fight that I thought ahead of the fight was going to be a fun fight. Isaac and Angel promised to steal the show. I think they did. I think this was a fight of the year candidate and early entry. Isaac Pitbull Cruz, living up to his reputation, he stayed in character, as pressure fighters often do, applying a lot of pressure early on against the more statuesque, long and limber Angel Fiero, who moved lateral, trying to create space to get punches out. He got clipped with an awful lot of right hands from Isaac Cruz over the top. Isaac's most effective punch. Effective weapon. Though after a few rounds, Angel Fiero grows into the fight, catches Isaac Cruz coming in with some regularity, hurts him more than once. Isaac Cruz got hurt more than once throughout the course of this fight, stopped in his tracks, backed into the ropes, backed into a corner, showed a lot of spirit because he didn't decide to hold or smother. He kept punching, kept fighting, which really lended itself to this fight's aesthetic. Being honest with you, I think Angel Fiero should have been up by 2 rounds after the final bell, though I never expected the judges to give him as much consideration as I was giving him. So when the judges' scorecards are red and they've got Isaac winning the fight, I'm not surprised. The pressure from Isaac Cruz was consistent throughout the entirety of the fight. He was always coming forward, very rarely taking a step back. Based on that alone, I figured they're gonna give him the decision. So what happens now that Isaac is back in the winner's bracket? I expect that he might have a rematch with Gervonta Davis, just due to proximity, because they're both there. Isaac's always wanted a rematch with Gervonta Davis. Gervonta, who's not trying to go to Saudi, he's not trying to work with Turkey, and he doesn't have a lot of options beyond this upcoming Lamont Roach fight. I expect to see a rematch between them later on this year. Congratulations to Isaac Pitbull Cruz for what was a fun fight. No need to overthink it. The most surprising fight of the night, I would say, was Stephen Fulton versus Brandon Figueroa. This is one prediction I got wrong. I was convinced that Stephen Fulton, he's finished, he's done. He seemed dejected all fight week. Brandon has all the momentum going in. This is a better weight for him, 126, as opposed to where they initially met at 122. I was shocked. I was wrong. Brandon Figueroa is a pressure fighter, a mid-range to inside volume puncher, but not a very good one. His combinations resemble flurries, not calculated shots, not accurate. He actually did a bit of switch hitting in the fight. Switching from orthodox back to southpaw, back to orthodox with no particular point or purpose. I believe that switch hitting in this era is what the Philly shell was in the previous one. Popularized by Floyd Mayweather. Started seeing guys using a Philly shell because of how effective Floyd Mayweather was with that guard. In this era, it's switch hitting. Popularized by Terrence Crawford, who can box orthodox, he can box southpaw, and he's very good at that, but you see a lot of fighters try to emulate it, not being as effective. The virtue of switch hitting is starting off the fight out of one stance and conditioning the opponent round by round, so that when you switch later on, it'll throw him off. But if you're just switching back and forth within the round, it doesn't have the same effect, and that's what Brandon was doing. He was just switching for the sake of switching, stepping into his punches and falling in way on the inside, sloppy, giving Stephen the opportunity to sprinkle some punches in there, moving lateral and boxing off the back foot, working off the counter. You know what to expect. I would say that Stephen won last night's fight by a wider margin than their initial meeting, that this was actually a more decisive win for Stephen than the first time out, because Brandon looked terrible. Yeah, the first time out, I felt that Stephen Fulton was very fortunate, very lucky to walk away with the win in the first fight. In the second, clear win. Stephen Fulton becoming a two-weight world champion was not on my bingo card, though he managed to do it. I still feel that Rafael Espinoza, this division's WBO champion, is by and large the most dangerous man at this weight. I don't give Stephen any kind of odds against Rafael Espinoza, but there are some more winnable fights out there.
More winnable than that one.
Could pursue a unification match with his old buddy, Angelo Leo, who he beat some years ago for what was Angelo's WBO title. Maybe they could do it again at 126 for Stephen's WBC and Angelo's IBF.
Angelo is en route to Japan to defend his title against Tomoki Kamita. If he makes it out of there in one piece and makes it back with his IBF title,
run it back with him. A chance for Angelo Leo to exact vengeance on Stephen Fulton, who's handed him his lone career defeat. I could go for that. I could go for a Nick Ball fight. Nick Ball is en route to a TJ Doheny fight.
He should win.
If he does, this is someone that Stephen Fulton could and should go after. These two fights, they're not easy, but they're more winnable than a Rafael Espinoza fight. I don't give Stephen Fulton any kind of odds against Rafael.
Too busy, too big, too strong, too aggressive for Stephen Fulton. Crawford.
There's really no reason for Stephen Fulton to stay at the PBC at this point. All the meaningful fights for him are on other sides of the street. By going to Top Rank, that might allow him access to two of the champions that are there.
And Nick Ball.
Frank and Bob have a great working relationship, so theoretically, if Stephen Fulton were to sign to Top Rank and go over there, something could happen. Something could be set up. The bottom line is, it's time for Stephen to once again leave the island, because if he stays at the PBC, he's going to stay sparsely active.
He's going to sit on the shelf for months. How long do you think it's going to take the PBC to get this guy back out there after this weekend's fight? Do you think he fights more than once this year? If he stays at the PBC, it's time to jump ship.
I wholeheartedly believe the best place for him to go now is Top Rank. Whether it's for unification matches with the other champions at the weight, or perhaps an Inui rematch. Maybe he wants that.
Go to Top Rank.
Brandon Figueroa sucks, and I've felt that way for a very long time.
He really sucked yesterday, though. I mean, my God.
Looked terrible, just stumbling around, letting go of ineffective combinations and ineffective punches. He made it that much easier for Stephen Fulton to continually counter him on the way in and outmaneuver him, because that's how Stephen won.
Out-hustling Brandon Figueroa.
Very curious and colorful fight kit that Stephen Fulton chose to wear for this fight.
Jean shorts and Timbs.
Credit to him, he's a champion again.
We then come to the main event of that same card, the David Benavidez versus David Morell fight, Battle of the Unbeatens. Lived up to my expectations.
I told you on repeat. I told you several times in the build-up, I cannot trust a fighter with only 11 professional fights who never faced a current or former world champion. That however he's been looking, whatever you're seeing,
I don't trust it. I don't believe him.
While he might have some of the right ingredients and even has the right base style for the job, he just doesn't have enough experience to put it all together. And yesterday, that's what you saw when he faced a very aggressive, very come-forward David Benavidez, who stayed in character, doing what he normally does, marching forward,
letting go of combinations.
Yeah, David Benavidez wasted a lot of punches on David Morell's guard. He wasted a lot of punches on the arms and gloves. But if that's happening consistently enough within a round, it still gives off the appearance that he's outworking the other guy, who's retreating, giving up ground, moving lateral,
staying on the defensive,
only occasionally opening up to let go of a few counters.
Occasionally, but the effort was not consistent enough from David Morell.
David Benavidez was outfighting him, outlanding him, pushing him around. David Benavidez, whose best punches are his bent arm punches. Those are his hooks. Those are his uppercuts, and he had a lot of success with the uppercut in this fight.
Where David Morell's best punches are his straight punches, while he has room to get them out.
Would explain why he spent so much of this fight just trying to create space, distance between himself and David Benavidez. In the fourth round, in the exchange, towards the end of it, he got in with a hard right hand that clipped David Benavidez, really rattled his cage. He was visibly hurt.
David Morell stepping into his punches, gets David Benavidez on the ropes, starts teeing off, but it was towards the end of the round with not much time left.
What I saw, David Morell is the harder puncher of the two. whenever he did let his punches go, and they did land, they were more impactful and more damaging than David Benavidez's punches, who was the far busier fighter in the fight.
And that's why he won. Activity.
You can be the harder puncher of the two, have more single punching power, but it counts for nothing if you're not throwing, if you're not landing. If every time we turn around, David Benavidez is ripping 3 and 4 and 5 punch combinations, and you're just reacting to it.
Doesn't matter how hard you hit.
Power doesn't matter, even if you have more of it. This guy's getting off more punches than you are, and if that happens often enough, it just looks like you're getting outworked. And that's what happened yesterday with David Morell.
9-3 Benavidez.
That's honestly how it looked. It looked like 9-3 in favor of David Benavidez, who got clipped in the 4th and knocked down towards the end.
There's some people are debating about that as to whether or not that was a legitimate knockdown, but I saw both of David Benavidez's gloves touch the canvas.
Now, his knee didn't touch the canvas, but both of his gloves did what looked like an off-balance shot. Didn't look like David was hurt by the punch.
Not too much.
In terms of his internal equilibrium, but in terms of his balance, yeah, he definitely looked off-balance and had to put both his gloves on the canvas to catch his footing.
To not trip over.
One of the few highlights that David Morell had in this fight, like I said, only occasionally opening up to let go of 1 or 2 counters. There were moments where he would fight David Benavidez off.
David's backing him into the ropes, he's letting go of combinations, and David Morell would have to assert himself, fight him off, and take the fight to the center of the ring. He just couldn't keep it there.
Putting his power on display whenever he would string together a 3-punch combination or a 4-punch combination. You can see David Morell's got power, he's just not letting his hands go enough. He's more content moving
and blocking.
You ain't gonna win around for any of that shit.
I do not trust Cuban fighters for this reason.
During the fight, you must have it in your head that you're gonna win the round off of defense, mostly defense alone. The Mayweather era is over, buddy. He didn't show no initiative, didn't do enough to not only take the fight from David Benavidez, but take it to him.
Consistently.
Take it to him.
Thus, I don't begrudge the judges their wide scorecards, because the less the judges reward that minimalist approach to boxing, the less inclined fighters are to use it.
You have to punch. You can't spend long spells of the round or of the fight just content moving.
Moving for the sake of moving.
9-3 Benavidez is how I saw it, though I'm not impressed because this is what I expected would happen.
He showed a good engine. He didn't get tired in this fight like he did in the last one with Vajdik.
Perhaps that's because in the Vajdik fight, he didn't have Angel Heredia making him those infamous memo shakes.
Memo shakes!
After the performance in his last fight, he brought him back for this one, and we see the difference.
Memo shakes!
For David Benavidez's reputation as some kind of a monster, I will say that David Morell gave a decent account of himself for a fighter that only has 11 professional fights, and not a single one among them was against a current or former champion. When you look at the performance through that lens, that David Morell was able to finish the fight on his feet.
He did all right for a guy with 11 fights against what's supposed to be a monster. I didn't see one yesterday.
I saw the same David Benavidez I always see, marching forward, throwing combinations with big holes, big gaps in between.
That can be countered, that can be exploited.
You know, to be honest with you, that's the one thing they talk about, like Turkey Al-Rashid, and they tell you, would you ever fight with them over there in Riyadh? But at the end of the day, my fan base is here in Las Vegas. I'm a Las Vegas fighter, you know what I mean? I would love to go over there and fight, but this is my market right here, and I feel like we're doing really well. We just sold out T-Mobile Arena, you know what I mean? It's one of it's a dream come true to me, you know what I mean? And I just want to take advantage of this market, because I've worked 11 years to. This is my first time having a freaking crowd like that, so I want to stay here.
He wants to stay in America.
So am I to interpret David Benavidez's post-fight comments some other way other than, I'm not going to Saudi, I'm not fighting for Undisputed because I care more about fighting in Vegas? Did he mean something else by that? Am I hearing it wrong? Interpreting it wrong? Another way to interpret it is, here you have a guy fighting for secondary titles, baby belts, trying to dictate terms to the undisputed champion.
Oh, it's got to be in Vegas, according to David Benavidez, who calls the shots?
So if David is so insistent that the fight has to happen in Vegas and not in America, I'm going to assume that an offer will be sent out shortly for the winner of that fight to meet David in America, and not in Saudi on Turkey's dime with Turkey paying for it since you're so focused on staying here. And whatever that offer is, it's gotta be in excess of what Turkey would pay for the fight. Pay you, pay the winner.
Because that's the only other way you can interpret this. That David is trying to dictate terms to the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol 2. You want it in America, so send out an offer to do it in America.
And if you do, it has to be for more money than Turkey would pay you. It has to be. Otherwise, what are you doing?
Sandbagging it.
Putting up roadblocks, obstacles that don't need to be there. Let me remind you that fighters that regularly make a lot more money than David Benavidez have all been willing to fight in Saudi. You can't use sides of the street as an argument against going over there, because several guys from your side of the street have already boxed in those Saudi shows. Why don't you want to? I thought you wanted to be undisputed. I thought you wanted to fight the best.
I'm supposed to believe that David Morell, who's had a grand total of 1 fight as a light heavyweight, is the best? He's the best light heavyweight?
Because you fought him and beat him yesterday, you now get to dictate terms to the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol, the undisputed champion?
Bullshit.
Because this is not actually about dictating terms for a fight. He's not after a fight with them. And it's what I always told you. After he beats Morell on points, which I predicted, he's going to find a way to wriggle out of that situation. I don't think David Benavidez is going to have an extended stay in this division, and as far as I'm concerned, the fight with Zurdo Ramirez at Cruiser is already made.
David Benavidez took care of a Cuban fighter last night. Zurdo Ramirez has to take care of a Cuban fighter in his next fight. And if he does, look for Benavidez versus Zurdo after that.
Isn't that what I've been telling you all along? You're telling me that you listened into that soundbite, that post-fight press conference, and you interpreted some other way other than he's not going to Saudi and he's not fighting the winner of that fight.
Too many of the discussions and the debates in the American boxing scene rely on pure tomfoolery.
In the end, you're just mad that I was right, and you have nothing to use against me. A subscriber to this channel that goes by the name Jerry Soriano was relying on the potentiality of a trilogy to be the reason that David don't fight the winner of that fight, up until 48 hours ago.
Until Turkey let it be known that whoever won yesterday's fight, he's got every intention of putting him in the ring with Beterbiev and Bivol. No trilogy. You want the winner of that fight?
Go get him. And what did I tell you? David won't.
Yeah, I heard that Jerry called the Boxing Voice this morning, complaining about this channel, but what's to complain about? I told you David Benavidez would win a points decision, and I told you he's not fighting the winner of that fight. Under no circumstances.
Which means you owe me $100.
I don't expect him to be happy.
Saying that they need to get me off of my couch? Well, where else am I supposed to do a live watch along from?
Out of my apartment to do what? Sit on the David Benavidez bandwagon next to you?
They need to get me out of the house. No, you need to get your tongue out of David Benavidez's ass.
Because you sound stupid. Stop trying to present yourself like a character in the WWE. You're not. You're just mad. I was right again.
And a lot of people are, because after a while, logic fails, folks.
It's human nature.
You can't waste good logic on illogical people. All you really can do is use it against them.
To stay ahead of the curve.
And what this is about to devolve into. You're gonna see content creators sympathizing with David as if he's in any position to dictate terms to the winner of that fight. That's what they're gonna do.
Why are you mad?
Because I was right again.
I ain't gotta hoop and holler about it. All I gotta do is wait while you watch me wait.
Predictable.